This is Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle news update. I am here with my good friend, Dr. Tony Huge, via satellite, as they used to say, all the way in Thailand over there. Tony, you reported recently you had a heart attack. I know a lot of our fans are asking me a lot of questions. I'm getting texts and emails, and you know what? I don't like to speculate. I go right to the source. What's going on? How you feeling?
Okay, so let's get the drama stuff out of the way real quick. Let's call it a heart incident, not a heart attack.
Okay.
So
heart attack sounds so much more clickbait, right?
Yeah, because like, what else do you say that lets you know it's something potentially serious that you can summarize within a couple words?
Tell us what happened. Walk us through the day you went to the hospital.
Yeah, so I was having this pain in my chest. And I didn't think it was a sudden heart attack, but I thought it was something is wrong, something is off.
Brewing.
Of course, first thing I worried is I take all these different supplements, all these different drugs. I'm thinking, okay, no one of the supplements or drugs that I take could make this feeling, but a combination of them could potentially.
Right.
So, I instantly come off all the supplements that I can come off.
What were you on at the time? What was the cocktail that you were taking? Sorry.
I mean, I would have to walk through my condo and look through the shelves and all the things I pick off the shelves.
No, I'm not talking about vitamins. I'm talking about with drugs. What drugs were you on at the time?
So on any given time, which I probably was on right at that time, is probably testosterone,
right?
Insulin and growth hormone.
Okay.
Every once in a while, maybe I'm only doing it like twice a week.
Okay.
5 units of growth, 5 units of insulin type thing. Post workout, not a lot. A SARM. So I was probably on SARM AC 262. I've been rotating them a lot.
Gotcha.
So Cialis or Viagra, switch between the two.
Right.
And Nebivolol.
Okay. Now, do you take the Cialis Viagra just for performance in the sack or performance in the gym?
70% of the reason I take it is for the bedroom. 30% is for the blood pressure health benefits.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, because it is a blood pressure medication. People don't realize that.
Yeah. It works really good.
I'll tell you a funny story. I know people who are on blood pressure medications and who then take Cialis, and they feel like the room's spinning and they want to pass out, and they don't know why. It's because it's potentiating the other. In other words, it's too much blood pressure medication. It's dropping their blood pressure too much. So you got to be careful of that. It's a good point.
Yes, I've had that problem. Like after a set in the gym, if my blood pressure drops too low, I feel like I'm gonna pass out.
Yeah.
So then a bunch of peptides, melanotan, HCG, HMG. What am I experimenting with at this?
HMG. Are you trying to get another woman pregnant?
Keep my fertility.
Oh my God! How many kids do you have now?
So I've got 2 daughters, a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they were both with me here in Thailand for the holidays.
I saw the pictures of you on your Instagram. That was kind of cool, with baby mama 1 and baby mama 2, right?
Yeah, which I think the straw that broke the camel's back that caused this heart problem was stress related.
Oh, and really?
It's hard to say this because it sounds like I'm a real wimp, but I can handle a lot of stress, and I've handled a lot of stress and a lot of things in my life, but the stress of baby mama 1 and baby mama 2 and my other girlfriends, there's maybe 3 of them that are around at that time. So you got 5 girls all causing drama around holiday time. And then my 2 daughters and my 19-year-old stepdaughter, you could call her stepdaughter, is here. So like I was having some kind of panic attack. That's what pushed it over the edge. So I think this problem started earlier. I think it started when I had the flu 5 months ago.
Now, when you say the flu, are you talking about COVID or the flu?
Right.
Okay.
I'm just censor myself on the word because when I talk about it, I get censored on things. So.
Yes. Okay.
Definitely damaged my heart and my lungs. I think my lungs have recovered fully. I've had stem cells since then.
You did?
TB500.
Now, what damage did you find that you had to your lungs? Was it something measurable, or were you actually just having trouble breathing?
I had gotten my blood work done after having the condition, and then my D-dimer score was over 2,500.
Oh, wow.
Normal is 0 to 500. So someone would hope to be like 200, and I'm 2,500. I had the level of clotting in my blood that you see on the patients who die from this. So
Right.
I had a
Explain what
extreme
D-dimer.
clotting.
Explain what D-dimer is. D-dimer basically tells you that indicates that there's some kind of clotting incident in your body, and your body's trying to break the clot up, right? From what I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm lucky I didn't have a heart attack, pulmonary embolism,
Yeah.
any kind of stroke or something. I'm really lucky. And I got on blood thinners at that time, and I was really careful. And so I started babying my heart.
Mhm.
I was afraid to do a lot of cardio. I remember when right after having the COVID, then I would just try to walk. First, I would like, okay, I'm going to walk 1 block.
Right.
And even that, I would have to sit down and almost pass out and catch
Wow.
my breath. And then walk 2 blocks. And then, okay, now I'm going to walk a kilometer, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I never really got past that. I never got past like just walking a little bit for cardio.
Right.
And my heart was weaker. I very clearly, I should have exercised my heart, and I should have monitored my blood pressure better.
Well,
And everybody,
maybe if you had, you might have actually dislodged some kind of a clot, so maybe in essence, resting probably might have been the best thing for you, even though it took longer to recover from what you had happen. But what if you would have thrown a clot from the exercising, dislodging something, you could have been dead,
I thought about that at the time. That's actually one of the reasons why I thought, okay, I've got these clots all over my body. Maybe I just need to let my whole body just kind of rest.
You were smart. You were smart, yeah.
Over time. So good thing I did. And because a lot of people do actually have heart attacks after having COVID or the injection. They have heart attacks a month later.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen it. I don't want to mention people's names, but there's some people that probably have died from that. What, so you have anxiety a lot of times people don't realize can really masquerade itself as a heart attack as well. It's exactly the same symptoms. It happened to me once. I went to the emergency room, and they gave me a Xanax, and I was fine. So now whenever I feel stressed or I think I'm having a heart attack, I drink a glass of wine. That's the glass of wine trick. If the glass of wine doesn't get rid of the pain, then it's real. Then you go to the hospital. So, so what you're probably saying is that whatever incident and whatever was going on with your heart was just incidental to the stress kind of bringing it out, and then you went and got checked, essentially. Is that what happened?
Right, exactly.
Okay. So what did they find?
So I think now I'm just I'm gonna do a lot of cardio, and I started taking high dose of BPC 157 and TB 500 to heal my heart.
What's wrong with your heart? Tell people what's wrong with your heart.
So it's called mitral valve prolapse, and when the blood pumps into the chamber in the heart, a valve has to close so the blood doesn't backtrack to your vascular system.
Right.
So instead of the valve closing all the way, it's leaking. It's bent. There's a structure, structurally something wrong with it. And that could be because of remodeling. I mean, the left ventricle, if it gets enlarged, that can interfere with the valve. Other things can interfere with the valve. I don't know if it was a tendon that broke or if it's just some inflammation. I had a lot of inflammation on my CKMB, and my inflammation markers are really high.
C-reactive protein is high?
CKMB, and that's the one more, and CPK.
Well, CPK is just an enzyme that's going to leak. That can elevate just from weight training. So.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
So the CKMB is a little bit more specific to the heart. That was elevated.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now I didn't actually get like troponin and the other peptide, the 2 tests that you get done
troponin
to
test,
determine if you had a heart attack.
Jimmy DeBull calls it trombone. He thought they were testing his trombone levels, but I had to explain to him that it was actually troponin.
Yeah. So later, I did get them tested, and they're back to normal. My CKMB is much lower, but it's still out of the normal range.
You might have had a heart attack, Tony, because if you had high troponin and high, creatine kinase coming from cardiac tissue, that would indicate that there was some damage to some heart cells. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. So how would one define heart attack? Like what?
Well, in other words, some incident that caused the heart to have stress where some of the cells were damaged in some capacity. Whether a lot of times it's just an acute injury that heals itself. Sometimes it's a permanent type of thing. If you have a blockage in a blood vessel that completely causes death of a part of your heart, which that's not your case, something happened to your heart.
So I talked to a lot of people that have heart issues. I'm not a heart expert, but a lot of them, some people have really small heart attacks and some people have big heart attacks. There's certainly a big range. Small heart attacks are not very significant. Big heart attacks kill you, right? So I'm not too worried about some damage to some of the cells in my heart because I could just get stem cells. I can use all these peptides to heal. I'm worried about structural damage. So like things like left ventricle hypertrophy and mitral valve prolapse, those concern me because it makes me nervous that the heart is inside. I can't get to it. It's not like I can fix it myself. As if it's, if it's something out here, I can see it, I can understand it, I can fix it. But if some valve or something inside, that's so I think the sort of panic attack is what triggered was the straw that broke the camel's back.
I think so too.
And then I think the stress afterwards, I've been really careful to keep the stress down. Yeah. Like now with the women cause stress, I was gonna say, get
rid of some of the women. You got too many. Sometimes, when you collect like fish, I used to be a fish tank guy. And I was cleaning fish tanks nonstop. I said, why do I have so many freaking fish tanks? So I just kept the fish tanks that I liked and I got rid of the other ones. And you know what? It was a lot easier. So that's what you got to do.
It's like leveraging, when you leverage and everything goes really well, it's amazing, right? Whatever you leverage to make money, leverage to pleasure. And then when you're over leveraged and things don't work out, it's really, really bad.
Yes.
So
sometimes it's being bigger is not better. Now, with regard to business. Now, looking at your heart again, just for people who might not understand, the left ventricle is the portion of the heart that pumps the blood to the body, to the muscles, essentially, to the brain, to everything. The valve that connects the upper chamber, the left ventricle, the left atrium and the left ventricle, that's the mitral valve. So if that valve is not working properly, blood goes back into the left atrium and it doesn't stay in the left ventricle. And so the left ventricle has to work harder because all the blood it's pumping is not going out to the body. Some of it's going back into the upper part of the heart. So that can cause hypertrophy of the left ventricle. You might get, obviously lightheaded if you're not pumping enough blood, but your heart is probably very strong to begin with. So, sometimes they got to go in there and fix a valve. I think Arnold had his mitral valve fixed, I believe.
So my ejection fraction, like the percentage of blood that's supposed to go out, I don't know what a really good ejection fraction is. Maybe like 70 to 90 or something.
60% is usually pretty good. 65.
60, okay. Yeah. So mine was above 70 before.
That's
and
good.
Then on this
test,
really it was 59. So the doctor said, okay, 59 is still okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
You may never need to have surgery for this. You could be fine forever. But like the solution is surgery and there's no other solution. This is what the doctor said.
Right.
But I'm a little bit nervous because as a bodybuilder and living the kind of lifestyle I do and, bringing on leveraging pleasure and that can result in a lot of stress and anxiety attack in the future. It's like I could easily see a lot of situations where I would compromise my heart more than the average person who has mitral valve prolapse.
Right.
So I have to take it more seriously than.
So you might want to get it fixed so you can continue your lifestyle is what you're saying.
Right. But it feels a lot better now because we're back when it happened, it felt like exactly like it looks on the echocardiogram. The blue and the red, it's showing how, the blood's supposed to go in and out and the blue and red is not supposed to be mixing together. Right. But the blue and the red was mixing together and my heart's doing this instead of just pumping out. And I can actually feel that like my heart's working too hard trying to pump the blood out.
Now, I have to ask you this question because it's an obvious question that I think on people's minds. All these drugs that you've been experimenting with and talking about and, cocktails that you put together and we've seen all the videos and we've done the interviews before. Do you think any of this had anything to do with what's going on with your heart or you just think it's just, it happened from COVID or whatever, something else, caused it?
Initially, I thought it was probably, there's always contributing factors, right? So initially I thought, okay, COVID's probably 70% of it.
Yeah.
That's mostly a COVID thing. And then I thought, okay, so then I got a lot of fan feedback and saying that cabergoline can cause all these heart problems. And actually cabergoline can cause mitral valve prolapse.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
But there's a study I read that said that that's something that we know is possible, but when they actually looked at it, it was only really high dosages of cabergoline for really long periods of time to cause it. And I'm pretty conservative in my cabergoline usage. I mean, there isn't 3 weeks that goes by that I don't take Caber. I'm always taking Caber.
Now,
for
why
something.
is that? Is that for the sexual aspect of it?
Yeah, it's for the sexual benefits.
Okay. There's always that reason in there. Now, let me ask you a question. What was the mechanism that they found that cabergoline caused the mitral valve prolapse?
I don't know.
They don't know. They don't know.
Yeah, no. I read about it and I can't remember.
Oh,
I just
okay.
enough to log it in my brain that this is something I got to be careful of. So a lot of people were suggesting pramipexole instead. For the similar purpose, which I still haven't used Prami, which is shocking because a lot of bodybuilders, use Prami instead of Caber because it's so much cheaper.
Right. It's not as good, I don't think, but I don't think
And
you
a lot
really
of
need
people
it.
have side effects.
This is what I would do if I were you. I would, once again, we just talked about getting rid of all the fish tanks you don't need. Figure out what drugs you actually like to use and that work, and get rid of all the other crap that you don't really need. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really need cabergoline. You like to use it, but you don't really need it, I would think that Cialis would do enough in itself.
It's kind of like when you give advice to Boston Lloyd, though, too. It's like, if Boston Lloyd followed your advice, would he be Boston Lloyd anymore?
I think you're a lot more intelligent than he is. So I think that you might listen. That's why I'm saying it. So.
Yeah. Oh, I will. I'll be careful. And well, okay. What I do is, instead of megadosing or blasting chemistry, I try to find where the minimum effective dosage is,
right,
and
which is smarter.
And I figure side effects accumulate and aggregate. So if I switch between different drugs, then none of the side effects will accumulate from any other one drug. So that's kind of my approach. So I'm cutting back on the Caber. Cutting back because I know it's a risk to this particular condition.
Sure. Especially if you have the condition already.
Yeah, but like I have my personal life requires me to really be on my game.
I would think that you were a porn star with the cocktails of aphrodisiacs that you take on a regular basis.
Yeah, actually, tonight is an experiment, oxytocin. So I've got 2 girls waiting in the other room, and one is on PT 141 4 hours ago, so it should be kicking in right now. And then we're all going to take oxytocin 30 minutes before engaging, and supposedly that's supposed to amplify the intensity of everything. It's kind of hard to figure out the dosage, so
we're going to spray it in our nose. They call it the love hormone, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, well, you'll have to let us know how that works out. Hopefully, it'll work out well for you. How's the supplement company, Enhanced?
Yeah, good. Have Big Ramy, Dennis James, and doing a lot of business in the Middle East.
Great.
I think more business in the Middle East than the U.S.
You're better off staying in the Middle East. You'll probably make a lot more money there.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there, and the supplement industry really booming there, and booming in South America, places like Brazil, also different markets like that. So yeah, Enhanced has gone really international, really focused on like India, for example, now shifting focus to Pakistan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, a lot less action in the US.
Is it hard to get products approved for usage in these countries, or are you making them in these countries, or what's the strategy there?
Well, in America, there is no FDA approval for normal supplements. So just anybody can make a supplement and sell it for the most part. And then if you step across a certain line, then maybe you go to jail and pay a bunch of money. But there's no actual licensing. But in these other countries, there's licensing, but it's also like easy. I mean, it's not hard compared to in the US. FDA approval for a pharmaceutical is a $25 million investment. And in these other countries, maybe it's, like $4,000 per product to get it approved.
Gotcha.
And maybe it takes like 4 or 5 months, and they're going to tell you can't have this ingredient, that ingredient. And what's unfortunate is every country is just, there's no uniformity. So every country saying, oh, you can't have this ingredient. Oh, you can't have this ingredient. Right. So, as a supplement company owner, like what a expense and a pain in the butt to have so many SKUs, like every country, if you're distributing internationally,
the labels, the labels are
slightly
crazy.
Different ingredients, slightly different labels.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I guess if you have enough business in that country, it's worth it. So.
Yeah. So I was thinking about how to, just on the bodybuilding side, like how do I go forward? Because like you dropped a lot of weight. You had a heart issue, dropped
Yeah.
a lot of weight. That's the number one thing you could do to protect your
Exactly.
heart is give your heart less work, less
Exactly.
body to pump blood through. So I was like, oh man, I hope I don't have to drop weight. I really like being this, having the bodybuilder physique. So what else can I do to try to prevent any further heart issues? Because it's not like one thing's going to tip it over and kill me. It's the accumulation of these various things.
Of course.
So I actually watched some of your videos on cardiovascular health and got some of those tips and so I'll be implementing some of those. Yeah.
Great.
And then I'll be taking like telmisartan, and I'm already taking nebivolol and things like that. So I'm going to continue the bodybuilding.
Okay.
And I'm going to keep using gear, growth hormone, and insulin. I'm just cautious about it. But most importantly, I'm going to start doing cardio, because it was really stupid of me not to be doing cardio for so long.
Right.
And it's time. Yeah.
I haven't done any cardio, to be honest with you. I don't do any. I'm so lean. I don't need it. And you know what? The cardio I would be doing would be low intensity cardio anyway. So I don't even think it works for your heart really, that much. So I think intense workouts in the gym actually train your heart more so than cardio does, to be honest with you. But that's just my theory on it. I think that sometimes all the cardio people doing, it's more just like, it's good for people who do nothing, but if you go to the gym for 5 days a week already and you're training an hour a day, I mean, that's a pretty good workout, I would think, for your heart,
I thought maybe for some people, different genetics, right? Like your genetic, I think your genetics are different than mine in that you, for example, you found the most muscle growth from training less frequently, like once a week, right? I think my body has to train more frequently. Like my genetics or body needs to be really active, and I can feel like my heart atrophying. Even if I train hard, it's not the same as the cardio. I mean, I was hoping it was that way for me, but now I know definitively after this, like I can't replace cardio with weights personally for the way my body functions.
Well, they also say sometimes, as you're getting older, also an enlarged left ventricle, even though it's athletic, is not necessarily good for you, so to speak. Even though it's an athletic left ventricle that's enlarged, especially if you have a mitral valve issue, like you said, because the remodeling of that left ventricle can sometimes throw off that valve a little bit. And so it would be interesting, maybe if your heart got a little smaller, to see if the valve kind of fixed itself, so to speak, or at least the regurg
I think
did.
that's probably the solution. But how do we shrink our heart? I mean, nebivolol
I'm going to tell you. I went to this guy at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan, one of the best places for hearts. And I saw a specialist there, and he told me, listen, he said, I know you took steroids earlier in your life. You haven't taken them now, but at the time, I have an arrhythmia when I exercise at a very high level for some reason. And they thought it was related. He thinks it was related to the left ventricle just being thick, from being a bodybuilder all those years. He's like, just stop training. Don't take steroids. I promise you in a year, your heart will go back to normal. It's a muscle. And you know what? He was right. And I didn't do it right after he told me that, because I'm like you. I'm not going to stop training, right? But when I got my shoulder replacements done, I couldn't work out, right? Each one was like 3 months. I couldn't do anything. So in essence, I did what he said. And you know what? After my shoulder replacements were done, I had gone for a cardiac CT scan, and my left ventricle is not enlarged anymore. It's crazy. And it was massively thick, very thick. I mean, I was a 300-pound bodybuilder at one point. So, and I was lifting heavy weights. The heart will detrain itself like any other muscle and will go back to normal size. And I mean, that proves it right there. This guy said it to me. This guy could have given me the steroid lecture. He didn't. He said, look, I've seen athletic hearts are bigger, but when they're not functional, or they're not functioning well because they're bigger, like because you might be having arrhythmia, or you might have a valve that's not working right, get them back to normal size, see if that fixes the problem. And a lot of times it does.
Usually doctors are anti-steroids in every way, and they blame every condition on steroids. But a couple of these cardiologists I've talked to, because I had checked my heart out years ago and everything was fine. They all agreed that the steroids were less of a risk for heart enlargement than people talk about, but that training, like exercise itself, hard training is.
I agree.
So I think one thing in the bodybuilding community is we're giving too much blame on the steroids for mild left ventricle hypertrophy that all athletes have in the first place.
Yeah. And I think some people's bodies just respond differently to steroids too. Some people's hearts might look. I remember going to the gym and squatting 700 pounds. I mean, when you walk out with 700 pounds on your back, that's a lot of weight. I remember holding my breath with everything in my body to hold this thing. I can't imagine the pressure in my heart when I was doing it. Now, granted, I was in my 20s and early 30s, but that was a lot of weight. My heart has to adapt to that. Your heart has to get bigger to support that kind of blood flow, under that kind of stress and duress. And that's called an athletic heart. Think of what some of these athletes do, these CrossFit guys, it's crazy. Your heart is a muscle, it adapts. And so later in life, however, it might not be functional anymore, is what I'm saying,
Yeah, I studied a lot about blood pressure. And one thing I don't quite understand is, as a bodybuilder or powerlifter, when we're lifting a ton of weight, I think our blood pressure goes up really, really high. And so that was one of my concerns, is that if I have the mitral valve prolapse and I see this regurgitation and my blood pressure goes really high, then it's just going to pop, right?
I don't think that's
my nightmare. Like, my heart's just going to pop.
Not going to happen.
But what about us as bodybuilders, the amount of pressure that goes on our heart or our kidneys, or blood pressure is so dangerous if it's chronic, but I guess spiking it every once in a while when we train really heavy isn't causing damage?
I don't think on a acute type of, basis where it's just being done for brief periods of time, it's going to do any damage. I think high blood pressure is the silent killer, because you don't even know you have it, and it's damaging stuff chronically, over a long period of time, like smoking would. If you smoke a cigarette, you're not going to get lung cancer from smoking one cigarette. Even if you smoked one a week, you probably wouldn't get lung cancer. But if you smoke it every day, all day long, you probably, you're going to have a very high incidence of doing damage to your lungs and possibly getting lung cancer. And that's the truth with everything. That's high blood pressure. That's why you don't see kids who are 20 with, kidney, failure, because it takes a long time of having high blood pressure to damage and destroy your kidneys. That's why we have to kind of just mitigate those, and that's why I tell people to go get tested, test your blood pressure. Don't be dumb. Like when I was competing, no one tested anything, it didn't start till later. And so, I'm glad that I didn't do any permanent damage to my body, or hopefully didn't. But now that's why I educate people a lot. A lot of these things are very easily avoidable, but you know what? I think your biggest problem is, and you said it yourself, stress. I think you probably had this mitral regurg for years, and you probably didn't even know it. Stress brought it out, and I think that you had a panic attack, basically, is what happened. And now you're aware of the problem, which is good, because you know what? Now you can actually do something to address it. So.
Yeah. So now, and it forced me to really dive deep into all the heart health and the medications.
Sure.
And, like, for example, ACE inhibitors and ARBs and there's something I was like, I just don't need to know that. And then now I'm like, okay, now I need to know that. So now I'm
they're
really
very
studying.
Kidney protective too, a lot of those, so they're good drugs to take. It's probably something that bodybuilders should take just as a preventative almost,
Yeah, now I've decided I'm just going to take telmisartan for sure. Well, I went to the pharmacy here and I ran out of telmisartan, and I went to the pharmacy. They have losartan.
Right.
Instead.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. What's the price of those things there? But like 10 cents over there?
This was $2 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 3 times 5, 15 tablets. So a half a month supply for $2.
Yeah.
$4 a month.
That's crazy. So now, are you living there on a pretty permanent basis now?
Yeah, I traveled for the last 3 months, or longer than 3 months. I went to the U.S., traveled around. I went to Mexico. I went to Dubai, and then I came back here. And part of what I was getting out of it was, do I want to live in the other countries? Like Dubai is an option for me to live in.
Sure.
And I've been to Dubai before, and there's some things I really liked about it. So I kind of looked at it more this time of, could I live there?
Right.
And then same thing with Mexico. I love Mexico. I go to Mexico all the time. And I was like, okay, could I live there? And like, wow, nothing for me, for what I like, my preferences, everybody's preferences are different.
Right.
Like nothing really comes close to Thailand. It's just,
Gotcha.
To me, it's like a different universe.
Have you bumped into Gary Stridham over there? I know Gary's been living there for years too.
I have a lot of mutual friends with Gary, and they're all like, why don't you hang out with Gary and all that? And just the buzz I get from it is that Gary just doesn't want to be super social. Like
Gotcha.
he did when he was bigger and all
Right.
that. He just doesn't want to. So the summary was, and I think he's actually was going to move out of Thailand last I heard.
I didn't know that.
But the summary was like, his friends were like, just come meet us at the cafe. Like, just show up. So I always meant to do that and I forgot.
That's funny.
But I would, I love meeting up with these hardcore bodybuilders because you get to hear stuff you'd never hear.
No, Gary has stories too. Yeah, he's got good stories. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well and that obviously that you really didn't have a very dangerous heart attack where you could have died. And I'm glad that you're doing a lot of research on heart health now because obviously, like, we're always evolving as people too. And so and I know you find all this stuff is very interesting. So sometimes things happen in your life for a reason. Now you're moving into more of a health conscious viewpoint of things. And the best way, de-stress. Get rid of all the stuff. Get those fish tanks out of there you don't need, Tony. That's my advice.
I mean, what I heard from you, I think, was that wine is how you get rid of stress. So I think sounds like drugs are still the answer.
I'm telling you, if you think you're having a heart attack, drink a glass of red wine. If it goes away, it's not a heart attack, it's stress. If it doesn't go away, go to the emergency room. That's my rule of thumb.
Oh, this is another question. Since you have had the heart issues, you're a really good person to ask about this. Should people, us bodybuilders who may have potential heart issues, have nitroglycerin on hand? Because I hear that saves you from a heart attack if you take it.
It will save you if you have a blockage or a restriction in blood flow to your heart. A better option, Tony, was what I told you before we started the show. Get a cardiac CT scan. Because a cardiac CT scan it's non-invasive. You're going to lay in the machine. Get the good one. It's called cardiac CT angiogram. They inject a little dye into your vein there. And it takes 15 minutes, and they'll be able to visualize all the vessels that feed your heart to see what the size of them are, if there are any blockages in there, and you'll know. You're not going to need nitroglycerin if you have no blockages in your vessels. If you do have a blockage, guess what? They'll put a stent in there and they'll fix it. So you don't have to worry about having a heart attack because you don't know what's going on. There's no reason for not knowing what's going inside that chest of yours. These cardiac CT scans are great. They show you everything. And I highly recommend it. At the very least, anyone, at least in the United States this is the case, you can walk into any radiology place and make an appointment, say I want a cardiac CT calcium score. It's $60, and it'll tell you what your calcium buildup is in your vessels. It's not as good as a cardiac CT angiogram because that's a little bit more, they can visualize more because of the dye they put in you. But at the very least, get that and see if you have any buildup. Rich Gaspari went and his calcium score was 4,000. It's supposed to be 0. So, I mean, he saved his life by going for that. So that's something that I highly recommend people get.
So, last thing, something that was adding to my sort of anxiety attack that caused this event, I think, or made it come to a head.
Yeah,
was that I'm feeling my heart. Something's wrong, and I'm thinking I have these girls around me. A lot of them don't speak English. They don't know what to do if I have a heart attack. And can they give me CPR? So and I'm trying to think, how do I had the same problem with COVID too. When I had COVID, it was really bad. And my girlfriend was with me, had COVID also, and her brain's not working right. She can't even remember how to speak English because we had such bad brain fog from it. So I couldn't communicate to her how to help me. And I sort of have panicked also that, oh my gosh, I feel like something's wrong with my heart and I don't think these girls can help me. How do I explain to them?
Yeah. Ambulance. Learn the Thai word for ambulance. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's just because I have a 911 type thing.
Yeah.
But do you teach your wife how to do CPR and how to help you in a certain event? Or what do you teach?
I mean, it's not bad. I mean, my wife was a physical therapist, so she knows CPR. But I mean, I don't know. I guess, I mean, I don't even know if CPR is going to help at that point. I guess it can keep you alive until the ambulance gets there. But 911, at least in the U.S., if you're having a heart attack and you can't get in a car and someone can't drive you to the hospital, call an ambulance. I tell people don't wait, man, because the longer you wait, the worse it can be. And don't wait till it gets to the point where you're having a heart attack. If you're having pain or you're uncomfortable, unless you're Jimmy the Bull. If you're Jimmy the Bull and you're watching this, take Mylanta, Tums, or any kind of antacid, Alka-Seltzer. Don't go to the VA hospital anymore. He goes every week. He thinks he's having a heart attack after he eats a greasy Italian meal. He gets indigestion, because indigestion can sometimes mimic itself as a heart attack, and we see that a lot in people. So if you're eating a very heavy meal and going to lay down right after, and you start getting those burps and the feeling like someone's sitting on your chest, it's probably indigestion. So, but ambulance, go to the hospital. Better safe than sorry. I went to the hospital. I was having a panic attack once, and they put you on. As soon as they put an EKG machine on, they'll know if you're having a heart attack or not. I mean, it takes 2 seconds, and they knew I wasn't having one, and they gave me like a Xanax, and I was fine. But better safe than sorry, right?
I think realistically, a heart attack is probably how I'm going to die. Like after kind of experiencing this, I kind of like, okay, now it's just a matter of time until like something like these events kind of come together at some time in the future. And because everything else in the body, you have time to fix it. Like something happens to your kidneys, you have time to fix it. Something happens to your liver.
Well, that's why you have to have a preemptive strike. That's why, if the cardiologist tells you, hey, your mitral valve is not working and we really need to fix this, get it fixed. Arnold had his fixed. I mean, what's the big deal? It's non-invasively fixed nowadays, so they don't have to open your chest up or anything like that. I mean, if they say you can live with it, don't worry about it, take this and take that, then do that. But just follow up. I think a lot of people they get a diagnosis, then they just ignore it, and then they don't ever follow up on it. You got to follow. If you have an issue, you got to go to a cardiologist once a year and get a checkup. I'm shocked they didn't order a cardiac CT scan of you. Maybe because, I don't know, maybe they don't do it in Thailand. They've got to have somewhere in Thailand that they do one. Probably costs $5 over there, so go get one.
Yeah, I'll get a lot more testing now. Yeah, like I said, even tomorrow, if I can make it there tomorrow, I'm going to get more testing also. Yeah.
All right, well, I know it's late over there, Tony. Thanks for coming on and filling us in on what's going on with you. And once again, best of luck with the enhanced line, and stay healthy, and don't do too many drugs.
All right, be swell and swole, Dave.
Take it easy. All right, that's going to take us to the end of another RX Muscle News Update. I'm Dave Palumbo with Tony Huge. We'll see you next time.